Well, we finally reached part 3 of 3 when discussing New Zealand's future frigate options. In case you missed it, the options are the Upgraded Mogami from Japan and the Arrowhead 140 from the UK, which the Royal Navy calls the Type 31. We put out separate videos looking closely at each ship type, but now it's time to look at them side by side. So, let's get started. Let's first look at the timeline to get a sense of program maturity. It was in May 2018 that Babcock Team 31 unveiled Arrowhead 140 as its design for the UK Ministry of Defence's new Type 31E general-purpose light frigate program. However, the design is based on Danish firm OMT's Ivar Huitfeldt hull form, which is currently in service with the Royal Danish Navy. That first hull entered service way back in 2011. As for the current Type 31/Arrowhead 140, the first steel cutting for the Royal Navy's ships took place in September 2021 for HMS Venturer. This first vessel has yet to enter service, but was floated off in June 2025 and is undergoing intensive outfitting and systems integration as of mid to late 2026. Over in Poland, their first Arrowhead 140, ORP Wiche, was launched in mid-August 2026, and so work is ongoing for an anticipated entry into service in 2029. In Indonesia, their version of the Type 31/Arrowhead 140 program is a little ahead of Poland, as their lead ship, KRI Balaputra Dewa, was launched on December 18, 2025. This will see entry into service either in late 2028 or early 2029. And so we can see that Babcock has so far successfully exported the Arrowhead 140 design to 2 other nations, and those customers seem to be making good progress on the construction of their first ships, with other hulls in earlier stages of construction. For the Upgraded Mogami class, it's a different situation, but having a strange parallel history. Like the latest Arrowhead 140 from Babcock, the Upgraded Mogami has yet to enter service. However, the basic Mogami-class frigates have entered service, with the first ship, JS Mogami, commissioned in April 2022. As reported by Naval News, it was in December 2025 that the 12th and final Mogami-class multi-role frigate for the Japan Maritime Self-Defense Force, or JMSDF, was launched. Now, when it comes to the new FFM/Upgraded Mogami, we could not find any reporting of a first steel cutting taking place and construction getting underway. To be absolutely sure of things, we did ask AI to search Japanese language sources, and the result was that there is no indication that a keel-laying ceremony has taken place, despite goals of the lead ship being laid down in fiscal year 2025. Over in Australia, the latest news is that a contract has been signed and Japan has agreed to relax export control restrictions relevant to the program, but again, there are no clear indications that new FFM work has begun as of mid/late August 2026. And so, in terms of program maturity and progression, it looks like the British ship is ahead. At the same time, the Upgraded Mogami should be a relatively simple upsizing with more weapons and equipment. Additionally, we trust that the Japanese know what they're doing and will plan things carefully to get work done on time. The bottom line on program maturity, however, is that the Type 31 is ahead. Now let's compare ship specifications with Arrowhead 140 data coming from navaltechnology.com and Upgraded Mogami data from the Royal Australian Navy's webpage on the ship. For displacement, we'll have to go with empty displacement, since New Zealand would need to choose its own systems, sensors and weapons for the Arrowhead 140, which will ultimately determine full load displacement. For the Arrowhead 140, empty displacement is thought to be about 5,700 tons. The Upgraded Mogami has a standard displacement of 4,800 tons, thus being a little lighter than the British warship. It's worth noting that the Upgraded Mogami is nowhere near as customizable, but we'll discuss that more later on in this video. On length, the Arrowhead 140 will have a maximum overall length of 138.7 meters, while the Upgraded Mogami is 142 meters long. For beam, the Arrowhead 140 is 19.8 meters, while it's 17 meters for the Japanese vessel. Looking at ship dimensions alone, we can see that the AH-140 is slightly shorter but wider. This wider beam should thus increase sideways stability. The downside is that it creates more drag and slows the vessel down. The Arrowhead 140 is designed to carry more than 160 people, but can reportedly operate with a minimal crew of 100. Basic crew for the new FFMs is said to be approximately 92 sailors, but there will be accommodation for up to 127 on board. And so, on this metric, the upgraded Mogami does indeed have the ability to operate with fewer sailors, as it's highlighted as a major selling point. At the same time, it doesn't look like the difference is too big. When it comes to the flight deck, Navy Lookout and Naval News report that the Arrowhead 140 is sized to land a Chinook heavy helicopter, and the hangar can comfortably house a Merlin, with some sources noting capacity for 2 Wildcat-sized helicopters together. The upgraded Mogami carries only 1 embarked helicopter, and the site J Defense News says that the aft flight deck and hangar can hold 1 Mitsubishi SH-60K/L, or alternatively the larger Kawasaki MCH-101, but only a single aircraft. And so, for flight deck, it looks like the Arrowhead 140 wins. Comparing sailing performance will be difficult without knowing full load displacement and systems and weapons loadout. However, we can expect the Arrowhead 140's range to be between 8,000 and 9,000 nautical miles, with an endurance of 3 to 4 weeks without replenishment. Reaching a speed of at least 26 knots shouldn't be a problem. For the upgraded Mogami, Australia's Ministry of Defence says that a range of 10,000 nautical miles is attainable, while the ship can reach speeds of over 30 knots. We couldn't find an endurance timeframe without replenishment, but we can expect something similar to the Arrowhead 140, if not longer, due to a smaller crew. When it comes to weapons and systems, well, we first have to discuss the level of customizability. It's said that the upgraded Mogami is much closer to a fixed mass production baseline optimized for build speed, crew reduction, and commonality across a large fleet. This stands in stark contrast to the Arrowhead 140, which offers an open architecture platform. The Royal Australian Navy will get the following loadout for its upgraded Mogamis, and capabilities are largely considered identical to what the Japanese ships will have, although some weapons will be Western equivalents rather than what the Japanese will have. A 32-cell Mark 41 vertical launch system, surface-to-air missiles in the form of RIM 162 ESSM Block 2, Kongsberg NSM anti-ship missiles, 1 5-inch main gun, and 1 CRAM short-range point defense system. Sensors include a towed array sonar system, active electronically scanned array radar, electronic countermeasures, and advanced tactical data link system. And again, since the Arrowhead 140 is so customizable, New Zealand could go light like the UK's Type 31s, or more heavy like Poland's Miecznik class. It could even go for Turkish systems and weapons like the Indonesians. Not that we expect it to. And so, on this topic, rather than comparing which ship type wins on weapons loadout and systems, we would say that the Arrowhead 140 wins for being far more flexible and customizable, something that cash-strapped New Zealand might find quite appealing given a small military budget. For industrial cooperation and technology transfer, both sides allow for domestic production. This is clearly demonstrated with Arrowhead 140 ships being built in Poland and Indonesia. For the upgraded Mogami, the first 3 ships will be built by Mitsubishi Heavy Industries in Japan for delivery starting in 2029, but the subsequent batch of ships is planned to be transitioned and onshored for construction in Western Australia. The first batch being built in Japan allows for faster delivery, which is itself a strong selling point. At the same time, we have to wonder where New Zealand would have the space to build such large ships. It has been suggested they would use the Calliope dry dock at Devonport Naval Base, but, well, it seems like a tight fit from the looks of things. Fit-out, however, wouldn't be a problem. When it comes to interoperability, well, Australia will operate the upgraded Mogami and not the Arrowhead 140. Thus, the Royal New Zealand Navy would see much more interoperability with their Australian counterparts by going with the Japanese ships. The Kiwis operating in the Pacific would also have a high degree of interoperability with their Japanese allies, of course. On the topic of cost, New Zealand will have the flexibility to drive costs down with the Arrowhead 140 by selecting cheaper or fewer weapons, as well as cheaper sensors and systems. This will not be as much the case for the upgraded Mogami, which, as we mentioned previously, is not as flexible when it comes to weapons and systems options. We don't have exact figures that can be fairly compared, but it would seem that the Japanese ships will cost significantly more than the British competition. On the other hand, our connections suggest that the UK Type 31 with 32-cell VLS will be about £400 million. This could also spike dramatically with tax, and so while the AH-140 might be more flexible, it could also weirdly end up being more expensive. One other point about cost and flexibility is that the Arrowhead 140, while allowing for more customizability, can equate to more work for New Zealand defence procurement staff, more time spent on consultations and studies to choose suitable equipment and weapons, and then time spent to negotiate pricing and delivery schedules with each supplier. And so buying a ship that comes with all systems installed and delivered might be a selling point of its own. We have to admit that when we began our research into these ships and comparing them side by side, we felt fairly certain that the upgraded Mogami would appear to be more attractive, especially with the smaller crew size. We even wondered if New Zealand, in holding a competition between two designs, was a way to drive down costs, having the presence of a rival become a bargaining chip to convince both parties to make their offers as cheap as possible, and then ultimately going for the Mogami. However, after looking at the situation, it would appear that the Arrowhead 140 still has a decent chance. The Japanese ship most certainly has the opportunity to be a more capable vessel class, but if we put everything within the context of New Zealand having a small defence budget, then, well, Babcock could still be chosen over Mitsubishi Heavy Industries. The Arrowhead 140 program is a little more mature, while design export and technology transfer have already been established. The same can't really be said for the Japanese. Not quite yet. But again, it's said that New Zealand's final recommendation/selection is expected to go to Cabinet before the end of 2027, and so it looks like there's a good deal of time to see how things go between the Aussies and Japanese. But what do you think of our comparison and our assessment? Are there any points of comparison that you would add? Let us know by leaving a comment.